everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs, provided it is technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, can be termed as resource. The process of transformation of things available in our environment involves an interactive relationship between nature, technology, and institutions. Human beings interact with nature through technology and create institutions to accelerate their economic development. Do you think that resources are free gifts of nature as is assumed by many? They are not. Resources are a function of human activities. Human beings themselves are essential components of resources. They transform material available in our environment into resources and use them. These resources can be classified in the following ways: A. On the basis of origin, biotic and abiotic. B. On the basis of exhaustibility, renewable and non-renewable resources. C. On the basis of ownership, individual, community, national, and international. D. On the basis of status of development, potential, developed, stock, and reserves. Resources: natural resources, human resources. Natural resources: renewable resources, non-renewable resources. Renewable resources means continuous or flow. Example: wind, water. And also biological. Biological resources means natural vegetation and wildlife. Non-renewable resources: recyclable. Example: metals. Non-recyclable. Example: fossil fuels. Next, human resources. Human resources means one is structures and institutions. Next, quantity and quality. Development of resources. Resources are vital for human survival as well as for maintaining the quality of life. It was believed that resources are free gifts of nature. As a result, human beings used them indiscriminately, and this has led to the following major problems: depletion of resources for satisfying the greed of a few individuals, accumulation of resources in few hands, which in turn divided the society into two segments, that is, haves and have nots, or rich and poor. Indiscriminate exploitation of resources has led to global ecological crises such as global warming, ozone layer depletion, environmental pollution, and land degradation. An equitable distribution of resources has become essential for a sustained quality of life and global peace. If the present trend of resource depletion by a few individuals and countries continues, the future of our planet is in danger. Therefore, resource planning is essential for sustainable existence of all forms of life. Sustainable existence is a component of sustainable development. Sustainable development means sustainable economic development means development should take place without damaging the environment. Development should take place without damaging the environment, and development in the present should not compromise with the needs of future generations. Compromise with the needs of the should not compromise with the needs of future generations. Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit 1992. In June 1992, more than 100 heads of states met in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil for the first International Earth Summit. The summit was convened for addressing urgent problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development at the global level. The assembled leaders signed the Declaration on Global Climate Change and Biological Diversity. The Rio Convention endorsed the Global Forest Principles and adopted Agenda 21 for achieving sustainable development in the 21st century. Agenda 21. It is a declaration signed by world leaders in 1992 and the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development (UNCED), which took place at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It aims at achieving global sustainable development. It is an agenda to combat environmental damage, poverty, disease through global cooperation on common interests, mutual needs, and shared responsibilities. One major objective of the Agenda 21 is that every local government should draw its own local Agenda 21. Resource planning. Planning is the widely accepted strategy for judicious use of resources. It has importance in a country like India, which has enormous diversity in the availability of resources. There are regions which are rich in certain types of resources but are deficient in some other resources. There are some regions which can be considered self-sufficient in terms of the availability of resources, and there are some regions which have acute shortage of some vital resources. For example, the states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh are rich in minerals and coal deposits. Arunachal Pradesh has abundance of water resources but lacks in infrastructural development. The states of Rajasthan is very well endowed with solar and wind energy but lacks in water resources. The cold deserts of Ladakh is relatively isolated from the rest of the country. It has very rich cultural heritage but it is deficient in water, infrastructure and some vital minerals. This calls for balanced resource planning at the national, state, regional and local levels. Resource planning in India. Resource planning is a complex process which involves number 1, identification and inventory of resources across the regions of the country. The involves surveying, mapping and qualitative and quantitative estimation and measurement of the resources. Number 2, evolving a planning structure endowed with appropriate technology, skill and institutional setup for implementing resource development plans. Number 3, matching the resource development plans with the overall national development plans. India has made concerted efforts for achieving the goals of resource planning right from the first 5-year plan launched after independence. The availability of resources is a necessary condition for the development of any region, but mere availability of resources in the absence of corresponding changes in technology and institutions may hinder development. There are many regions in our country that are rich in resources, but these are included in economically backward regions. On the contrary, there are some regions which have a poor resource base but they are economically developed. Can you name some resource rich but economically backward regions and some resource poor but economically developed regions? Give reasons for such a situation. The history of colonization reveals that rich resources in colonies were the main attractions for the foreign invaders. It was primarily the high level of technological development of the colonizing countries that helped them to exploit resources of other regions and establish their supremacy over the colonies. Therefore, resources can contribute to development only when they are accompanied by appropriate technological development and institutional changes. India has experienced all this in different phases of colonization. Therefore, in India, development in general and resource development in particular does not involve the availability of resources, but also the technology, quality of human resources and the historical experiences of the people. Conservation of resources. Resources are vital for any developmental activity, but irrational consumption and overutilization of resources may lead to socio-economic and environmental problems. To overcome these problems, resource conservation at various levels is important. This had been the main concern of the leaders and thinkers in the past. For example, Gandhiji was very apt in voicing his concern about resource conservation in these words: "There is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed." He placed the greedy and selfish individuals and exploitative nature of modern technology as the root cause for resource depletion at the global level. He was against mass production and wanted to replace it with the production by the masses. At the international level, the Club of Rome advocated resource conservation for the first time in a more systematic way in 1968. Subsequently, in 1974, Gandhian philosophy was once again presented by Schumacher in his book Small is Beautiful. The seminal contribution with respect to resource conservation at the global level was made by the Brundtland Commission report 1987. This report introduced the concept of sustainable development and advocated it as a means for resource conservation, which was subsequently published in a book entitled Our Common Future. Another significant contribution was made at the Earth Summit at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. Land resources. We live on land, we perform our economic activities on land, and we use it in different ways. Thus, land is a natural resource of utmost importance. It supports natural vegetation, wildlife, human life, economic activities, transport, and communication systems. However, land is an asset of finite magnitude. Therefore, it is important to use the available land for various purposes with careful planning. India has land under a variety of relief features, namely mountains, plateaus, plains, and islands. About 43% of the land area is plain, which provides facilities for agriculture and industry. Mountains account for 30% of the total surface of the country and ensure perennial flow of some rivers, provide facilities for tourism and ecological aspects. About 27% of the area of the country is the plateau region. It possesses rich reserves of minerals, fossil fuels, and forests. Land utilization. Land resources are used for the following purposes: forests, land not available for cultivation, barren and wasteland, land put to non-agriculture uses, example buildings, roads, factories, etc. Number 3, other uncultivated land excluding fallow land, permanent pastures and grazing land, land under miscellaneous tree crops, groves not included in the zone area, cultivable waste, cultivable waste and land left uncultivated for more than 5 agricultural years. Cultivable wasteland. Number 4, fallow lands, current fallow, left without cultivation for 1 or less than 1 agricultural year. Other than current fallow, left uncultivated for the past 1 to 5 years. Number 5, net sown area, the physical extent of land on which crops are sown harvested is known as net sown area. Area sown more than once in an agricultural year plus net sown area is known as gross cropped area. Land use pattern in India. The use of land is determined both by physical factors such as topography, climate, soil types, as well as human factors such as population, density, technological capability, and culture and traditions, etc. Total geographical area of India is 3.28 million square kilometers. Land use data, however, is available only for 93% of the total geographical area, because the land use reporting for most of the northeast states except Assam has not been done fully. Moreover, some areas of Jammu and Kashmir occupied by Pakistan and China have also not been surveyed. The land under permanent pasture has also decreased. How are we able to feed our huge cattle population on this pasture land? What are the consequences of it? Most of the other than the current fallow lands are either of poor quality or the cost of cultivation of such land is high. Hence, these lands are cultivated once and twice in about 2 to 3 years. And if these are included in the net sown area, then the percentage of NSA in India comes to about 54% of the total reporting area. The pattern of net sown area varies greatly from one state to another. It is over 80% of the land of the total area in Punjab and Haryana, and less than 10% in Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Manipur, and Andaman Nicobar Islands. Forest area in the country is far lower than the desired 33% of geographical area, as it was outlined in the National Forest Policy 1952. It was considered essential for maintenance of the ecological balance, the livelihood of millions of people who lives on the fringes of these forests depends upon it. A part of the land is termed as wasteland and land put to other non-agricultural uses. Wasteland includes rocky, arid and desert areas, and land put to other non-agricultural uses includes settlements, roads, railways, industry, etc. Continuous use of land over a long period of time without taking appropriate measures to conserve and manage it has resulted in land degradation. This in turn has serious repercussions on society and the environment. Land degradation and conservation measures. We have shared our land with the past generations, and will have to do so with the future generations too. 95% of our basic needs for food, shelter and clothing are obtained from land. Human activities have not only brought about degradation of land, but have also aggravated the place of natural forces to cause damage to land. Some human activities such as deforestation, overgrazing, mining and quarrying too have contributed significantly in land degradation. Mining sites are abandoned after excavation work is complete, leaving deep scars and traces of overburdening. In states like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Odisha, deforestation due to mining have caused severe land degradation. In states like Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, overgrazing is one of the main reasons for land degradation. In the states of Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, over irrigation is responsible for land degradation due to waterlogging, leading to increase in salinity and alkalinity in the soil. The mineral processing like grinding of limestone for cement industry and calcite and soapstone for ceramic industry generate huge quantity of dust in the atmosphere. It retards the process of infiltration of water into the soil after it settled down on the land. In recent years, industrial effluents as waste have become a major source of land and water pollution in many parts of the country. There are many ways to solve the problems of land degradation. Afforestation and PR management of grazing can help to some extent. Planting of shelter belts of plants, control on overgrazing, stabilization of sand dunes by growing thorny bushes are some of the methods to check land degradation in arid areas. Proper management of wastelands, control of mining activities, proper discharge and disposal of industrial effluents and wastes after treatment can reduce land and water degradation in industrial and suburban areas. Soil as a resource. Soil is the most important renewable natural resource. It is a medium of plant GR and supports different types of medium of plant group and supports different types of living organisms on the earth. The soil is a living system. It takes millions of years to form soil up to a few centimeters in depth. Relief, parent rock or bedrock, climate, vegetation and other forms of life and time are important factors in the formation of soil. Various forces of nature such as change in temperature, actions and running water and glaciers, activities of decomposers etc. contribute to the formation of soil. Chemical and organic changes which take place in the soil are equally important. Soil also consists of organic means humus and inorganic materials. On the basis of the factors responsible for soil formation, color, thickness, texture, age, chemical and physical properties, the soils of India are classified in different types. Classification of soils. India has varied relief features, landforms, climate realms and vegetation types. These have contributed in the development of various types of soils. Alluvial soils. This is the most widely spread and important soil. In fact, the entire northern plains are made of alluvial soil. These have been deposited by three important Himalayan river systems, the Indus, the Ganga and the Brahmaputra. These soils also extend in Rajasthan and Gujarat through a narrow corridor. Alluvial soil is also found in the eastern coastal plains, particularly in the deltas of Mahanadi, Godavari and the Krishna and the Kaveri rivers. The alluvial soil consists of various proportions of sand, silt and clay. As we move inlands towards the river valleys, soil particles appear somewhat bigger in size. in the upper reaches of the river valley, that is near the place of the break of slope. The soils are coarse. Such soils are more common in Piedmont plains such as Juras, Chos and Terai. Apart from the size of their grains or components, soils are also described on the basis of their age. According to their age, alluvial soils can be classified as old alluvial Bangar and new alluvial Khadar. The Bangar soil has high concentration of conker nodules than the Khadar. It has more fine particles and is more fertile than the Bangar. Alluvial soils as a whole are very fertile. Mostly these soils contain adequate proportion of potash, phosphoric acid and lime, which are ideal for the growth of sugarcane, paddy, wheat and other cereal and pulse crops. Due to its high fertility, regions of alluvial soils are intensively cultivated, and densely populated soils in the drier areas are more alkaline and can be productive after proper treatment and irrigation. Black soil. These soils are black in color and are also known as regular soils. Black soil is ideal for growing cotton and is known as black cotton soil. It is believed that climatic condition along with the parent rock material are the important factors for the formation of black soil. This type of soil is typical of the Deccan Trap basalt region spread over northwest Deccan Plateau and is made up of lava flows. They cover the plateaus of Maharashtra, Saurashtra, Malwa, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh and extend on the southeast direction along the Godavari and the Krishna valleys. The black soils are made up of extremely fine, that is clayey material. They are well known for their capacity to hold moisture. In addition, they are rich in soil nutrients such as calcium carbonate, magnesium, potash and lime. These soils are generally poor in phosphoric contents. They develop deep cracks during hot weather, which helps in the proper aeration of the soil. These soils are sticky when wet and difficult to work on unless tilled immediately after the first shower or during the pre-monsoon period. Red and yellow soils. Red soil develops on crystalline igneous rocks in areas of low rainfall in the eastern and southern parts of the Deccan Plateau. Yellow and red soils are found in parts of Odisha, Chhattisgarh, southern parts of the Middle Ganga plain and along the Piedmont zone of the Western Ghats. These soils develop a reddish color due to diffusion of iron in crystalline and metamorphic rocks. It looks yellow when it occurs in a hydrated form. Laterite soil. Laterite has been derived from the Latin word later, which means brick. The laterite soil develops under a tropical and subtropical climate with alternate wet and dry season. This soil is the result of intense leaching due to heavy rain. Laterite soils are mostly deep to very deep, acidic, pH less than 6.0. Generally deficient in plant nutrients and occur mostly in southern states. Western Ghats region of Maharashtra, Odisha, some parts of the West Bengal and northeast regions, where these soils support deciduous and evergreen forests. It is humus rich. Humus means organic, but under sparse vegetation and in semi-arid environment. It is generally humus poor. They are prone to erosion and degradation due to their position. But under sparse vegetation in semi-arid environment, it is generally humus poor. They are prone to erosion and degradation due to their position on the landscape. After adopting appropriate soil conservation techniques, particularly in the hilly areas of Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, this soil is very useful for growing tea and coffee. Red laterite soils in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala are more suitable for crops like cashew nut. Arid soils. Arid soils range from red to brown in color. They are gently sandy in texture and saline in nature. In some areas, the salt content is very high and common salt is obtained by evaporating the water. Due to dry climate, high temperature, evaporation is faster and the soil lacks humus and moisture. The lower horizons of the soil are occupied by conker because of the increasing calcium content downwards. The conker layer formation in the bottom horizons restrict the infiltration of water. After proper irrigation, these soils become cultivable as has been in the case of western Rajasthan. Forest soils. These soils are found in the hilly and mountainous areas where sufficient rainforests are available. The soil's texture varies according to the mountain environment where they are formed. They are loamy and silty in valley sides and coarse grained in the upper slopes in the snow covered areas of Himalayas. These soils experience denudation and are acidic with low humus content. The soils found in the lower parts of the valleys, particularly on the river terraces and alluvial fans, are fertile. Soil erosion and soil conservation. The denudation of the soil cover and subsequent washing down is described as soil erosion. The process of soil formation and erosion go on simultaneously, and generally there is a balance between the two. Sometimes this balance is disturbed due to human activities like deforestation, overgrazing, construction and mining, etc., while natural forces like wind, glacier and water led to soil erosion. The running water cuts through the clayey soils and make deep channels as gullies. The land becomes unfit for cultivation and is known as a bad land. In the Chambal basin, such lands are called ravines. Sometimes water flows as a sheet over large areas down a slope. In such cases, the top soil is washed away. This is known as sheet erosion. Wind blows loose soil off flat or a sloping land, known as wind erosion. Soil erosion is caused due to defective methods on farming. Plowing in a wrong way, that is up and down the slope, form channels for the quick flow of water, leading to soil erosion. Ploughing along the contour lines can decelerate the flow of water down the slopes. This is called contour ploughing. Steps can be cut on the slopes, making terrace cultivation restricts erosion. Western and central Himalayas have well developed terrace farming. Large fields can be divided into strips of grass are left to grow between the crops. This breaks up the force of the wind. This method is known as strip cropping. Planting lines of trees to create shelter also works in a similar way. Rows of such trees are called shelter belts. These shelter belts have contributed significantly to the stabilization of sand dunes and in stabilization the desert in western India. Forest and wildlife resources. Narak, my lord, you are the creator of music in the world of Lepkas. O Narak, my lord, let me dedicate myself to you. Let me gather your music from the springs, the rivers, the mountains, the forests, the insects and the animals. Let me gather your music from the springs, the rivers, the mountains, the forests and the insects and the animals. Let me gather your music from the sweet breeze and offer it to you. We share this planet with millions of other living beings, starting from microorganisms and bacteria, lichens to banyan trees, elephants and blue whales. This entire habitat that we live in has immense biodiversity. We humans, along with all living organisms, form a complex web of ecological system in which we are only a part and very much dependent on this system for our own existence. For example, the planet's animals and microorganisms recreate the quality of the air we breathe, the water we drink and the soil that produces our food, without which we cannot survive. Forests play a key role in the ecological system, as these are also the primary producers on which all other living beings depend. Biodiversity or biological diversity is immensely rich in wildlife and cultivated species, diverse in form and function, but closely integrated in a system through multiple network of interdependencies. Flora and fauna in India. If you look around, you will be able to find that there are some animals and plants which are unique in your area. In fact, India is one of the world's richest countries in terms of its vast array of biological diversity. India is one of the world's richest countries in terms of its vast array of biological diversity. This is possibly twice or thrice the number to be discovered. You have already studied in detail about the extent and variety forest and wild resources in India. You may have realized the importance of these resources in our daily life. These diverse flora and fauna are so well integrated in our daily life that we take these for granted. But lately they are under great stress mainly due to insensitivity to our environment. Conservation of forest and wildlife in India. Conservation in the background of rapid decline in wildlife population and forestry has become essential. But why do we need to conserve our forests and wildlife? Conservation preserves the ecological diversity and our life support systems, water, air and soil. It also preserves the genetic diversity of plants and animals for better growth of species and breeding. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crop varieties. For example, in agriculture, we are still dependent on traditional crop varieties. Fisheries too are heavily dependent on the maintenance of aquatic biodiversity. In 1960s and 1970s, conservationists demand a national wildlife protection program. The Indian Wildlife Protection Act was implemented in 1972 with various provisions for protecting habitats. An all India list of protected species was also published. The thrust of the program was towards protecting the remaining population of certain endangered species by banning hunting, giving legal protection to their habitats and restricting trade in wildlife. Subsequently, central and many state governments established national parks and wildlife sanctuaries about which you have already studied. The central government also announced several projects for protecting specific animals which were gravely threatened, including the tiger, the one-horned rhinoceros, the Kashmir stag or hangul, three types of crocodiles: freshwater crocodile, saltwater crocodile, and the gharial, the Asiatic lion, and the others. Most recently, the Indian elephant black buck means chinkara, the great Indian bustard Godawan, and the snow leopard, etc., have been given full or partial legal protection against hunting and trade throughout India. Project Tiger. Tiger is one of the key wildlife species in the faunal web. In 1973, the authorities realized that the tiger population had dwindled to 1827 from estimated 55,000 at the turn of the century. The major threats to tiger population are numerous, such as poaching for trade, shrinking habitat, depletion of prey-based species, growing human population, etc. The trade of tiger skins and the use of their bones in traditional medicines, especially in the Asian countries, left the tiger population on the verge of extinction. Since India and Nepal provide habitat to about 2/3 of the surviving tiger population in the world, these two nations became prime targets for poaching and illegal trading. Project Tiger, one of the well publicized wildlife campaigns in the world, was launched in 1973. Tiger conservation has been viewed not only as an effort to save an endangered species, but with equal importance as means of preserving biotypes of sizable magnitude. Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand, Sundarbans National Park in West Bengal, Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, Sariska Wildlife Sanctuary in Rajasthan, Manas Tiger Reserve in Assam, and Periyar Tiger Reserve in Kerala are some of the tiger reserves of India. The conservation projects are now focusing on biodiversity rather than on a few of its components. There is now a more intensive search for different conservation measures. Increasingly, even insects are beginning to find a place in conservation planning. In the notification under Wildlife Act of 1980 and 1986, several hundred butterflies, moths, beetles, and one dragonfly have been added to the list of protected species. In 1991, for the first time, plants were also added to the list, starting with 6 species. Types and distribution of forest and wildlife resources. Even if you want to conserve our vast forest and wildlife resources, it is rather difficult to manage, control, and regulate them. In India, much of its forest and wildlife resources are either owned or managed by the government through the forest department or other government departments. These are classified under the following categories. Reserved forests. More than half of the total forest land has been declared reserve forest. Reserved forests are regarded as the most valuable as far as the conservation of forest and wildlife resources are concerned. Protected forests. Almost one third of the total forest area is protected forest as declared by the forest department. This one third. These forest land are protected from any further depletion. Unclassed forests. These are other forests and wastelands belonging to both government and private individuals and communities. Reserved and protected forests are also referred to as permanent forest estates, maintained for the purpose of producing timber and other forest produce and for protective reasons. Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under permanent forests. Madhya Pradesh has the largest area under permanent forests, constituting 75% of its total forest area. Jammu and Kashmir, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, and Maharashtra have large percentages of reserved forests of its total forest area, whereas Bihar, Haryana, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha, and Rajasthan have a bulk of it under protected forest. All northeastern states and parts of Gujarat have a very high percentage of their forests as unclassed forests managed by local communities. Community and conservation. Conservation strategies are not new in our country. We often ignore that in India, forests are also home to some of the traditional communities. In some areas of India, local communities are struggling to conserve these habitats along with government officials, recognizing that only this will secure their own long-term livelihood. In Sarsika Tiger Reserve, Rajasthan, villagers have fought against mining by citing the Wildlife Protection Act. In many areas, villagers themselves are protecting habitats and explicitly rejecting government involvement. The inhabitants of 5 villages in the Alwar district of Rajasthan have declared 1200 hectares of forest as the Bhairodev Dak Sanctuary, declaring their own set of rules and regulations which do not allow hunting and are protecting the wildlife against any outside encroachments. The famous Chipko movement in the Himalayas has not only successfully arrested deforestation in several areas but has also shown that community afforestation with indigenous species can be enormously successful. Attempts to revive the traditional conservation methods or developing new methods of ecological farming are now widespread. Farmers and citizens groups like the Beej Bachao Andolan in Tehri and Navdanya has shown that adequate levels of diversified crop production without the use of synthetic chemicals are possible and economically viable. In India, Joint Forest Management JFM program furnishes a good example for involving local communities in the management and restoration of degraded forests. The program has been in formal existence since 1988, when the state of Odisha passed the first resolution for joint forest management. JFM, joint forest management, depends on the formation of local village institutions that undertake production activities mostly on degraded forest land managed by the forest department. In return, the members of these communities are entitled to intermediary benefits like non-timber forest produces and share in the timber harvested by successful protection. The clear lesson from the dynamics of both environmental destruction and reconstruction in India is that local communities everywhere have to be involved in some kind of natural resource management. But there is still a long way to go before local communities are the center to stage in decision making. Accept only those economic or developmental activities that are people centric, environment friendly, and economically rewarding. The tree is a peculiar organism of unlimited kindness and benevolence, and makes no demand for its sustenance, and extends generously the production of its life activity. It affords protection to all beings, offering shade even to the X-men who destroy it. Gautam Buddha, 487 BC. Sacred groves, a wealth of diverse and rare species. Nature worship is an age old tribal belief based on the premise that all creations of nature have to be protected. Such beliefs have preserved several virgin forests in pristine form called sacred groves, the forests of god and goddesses. These patches of forest are part of large forest have been left untouched by the local people, and any reference with them is banned. Certain societies revere a particular tree which they have been preserved from time immemorial. The Mundas and the Santal of Chota Nagpur region worship Mahua, Basia latifolia, and Kadamba, Anthocopholos Kadamba trees, and the tribals of Odisha and Bihar worship the tamarind, Tamarindus indica, and the mango, Mangifera indica trees during weddings. Too many of us, people and banyan trees are considered sacred. Indian society Indian society comprises several cultures, each with its own set of traditional methods of conserving nature and its creations. Sacred qualities are often ascribed to springs, mountain peaks, plants, and animals which are closely protected. You will find troops of macaques and langurs around many temples. They are fed daily and treated as a part of temple devotees. In around Bishnoi villages in Rajasthan, herds of blackbuck, chinkara means nilgai and peacocks can be seen as an integral part of the community, and nobody harms them. Gharial on the brink. The Gharial population has been at its lowest since the 1970s. What went wrong and what we can do? Bird deaths blamed on dirty Yamuna. Delhi government report points to toxic elements in stagnant water. Can you find out the reasons for the above mentioned problems? Can you find out the reasons for the above mentioned problems? What is biodiversity? Why is biodiversity important for human lives? How have human activities affected the depletion of flora and fauna? Explain. Describe how communities